All right, let's dive right into this. Welcome, everyone, to today's Explainer. If you've ever found yourself locked in one of those incredibly frustrating arguments that just goes round and round in circles without ever actually getting anywhere, well, you are in exactly the right place. Today, we're exploring a seriously powerful concept from Neuro-linguistic Programming, or NLP, known as chunking. Specifically, we're going to look at negotiation and mediation. We'll learn how to chunk up to find a shared agreement, and then how to safely chunk down to solve specific disagreements. We're going to completely transform the way you navigate conflict, whether that's happening in a high-stakes corporate boardroom or right in your own living room.
So here is our roadmap for today's session. 1. The anatomy of disagreement. 2. What is chunking? 3. Chunking up to find shared ground. 4. Chunking down to solve specifics. And finally, 5. Mastering the negotiation process. Our journey today will actually perfectly mirror the spatial direction of a highly successful negotiation. Let's get moving.
Section 1. The Anatomy of Disagreement. Let's kick things off by just acknowledging that deeply universal frustration we all feel when arguments get hopelessly stuck on surface-level details.
Because conflict, it is absolutely everywhere in our lives, and it exists on multiple scales. It scales all the way up from massive intergroup corporate battles, rival companies fighting for market share, down to interpersonal arguments with your partner over whose turn it is to do the dishes, and right down to entirely subjective internal parts conflict. Think about that totally relatable struggle. One part of your brain demands you go to the gym to be healthy, while the other part passionately advocates for staying on the couch with a giant piece of cake. It's all conflict. But the wild thing is, the mechanics of resolving a massive corporate merger and resolving your gym versus cake dilemma are surprisingly similar. To resolve any of these conflicts, we have to fundamentally reframe how we view the whole process. Negotiation is not a battle. It is not a zero-sum game where someone literally has to lose in order for you to win. It's a collaborative process of mediation, a joint search for a workable solution. Ultimately, you aim to get what you want by actively giving others what they want, working together toward a true shared agreement.
Moving right along to Section 2, what exactly is chunking? Let's introduce our primary navigational tool for escaping those dreaded deadlock situations.
You really have to ask yourself, how do we actually break the deadlock of disagreement? Why do so many everyday negotiations fail spectacularly? Mostly, it's because people just keep banging their heads against the same deep versus surface structure language. They argue endlessly over minute, hyper-specific details without ever stepping back to see the bigger picture. We need a reliable way out of that trap.
And that brings us to the core concept here, chunking. Originally adopted straight from the IT world, this NLP principle refers to our cognitive ability to organize and break information down into bits of the exact right size. It's the skill of scaling up to the big picture or drilling down into microscopic specifics. For the human brain to successfully process information, communicate clearly, and discover hidden patterns, that information just has to be sized correctly for the moment at hand.
To see this concept in action, imagine a very specific vehicle, let's say a Ford. From there, we can chunk up to a broader, more general class to widen our perspective, like cars in general, or even higher to just means of transport. Alternatively, if we start at that same Ford, we can chunk sideways or laterally to another member of that exact same class, like a Lincoln. It's all about how we group, connect, and categorize information in real time.
Which brings us to Section 3, chunking up to find shared ground. We're now going to zoom out to the big picture and see how we can elevate a stalled, frustrating conversation.
When you find yourself vehemently disagreeing on specific minor details, you have to physically move up the funnel of the conversation. This is the process of synthesis. You're moving from the specific to the general to create wider choices and some much-needed mental space. By elevating the conversation, you're chunking up to find a shared agreement. This upward movement helps uncover those core, fundamental needs that are hiding just beneath the surface-level argument.
So how do we actually do this in the heat of the moment?
Well, you use trigger questions. If you want to move from an example to a broader class, ask a simple question like, what class is this an example of? But the absolute master key in conflict resolution is moving from a specific behavior to the underlying intention. By asking, what is the intention behind this behavior, you steer entirely away from the frustrating actions of the other person, and you connect directly with their core motivations. Are they raising their voice to be annoying, or because their deeper intention is a desperate need to be heard?
This brings us to a golden rule of NLP. Keep chunking up until you come to a level where both parties agree. You see, at a high enough level of positive intention, neither party needs to give anything up. For example, if two managers are fighting over budget allocations, chunking up might reveal that both ultimately share a deep desire for the company's financial security. Once you find that shared, high-level agreement, the tension in the room instantly diffuses.
Okay, Section 4. Chunking down to solve specifics. Now that we've found our common ground, it's time to change our directional language and get back into the weeds.
Let's contrast these two directions. While chunking up is entirely about synthesis and uncovering those positive intentions, chunking down? That's all about analysis. You are chunking down to solve specific disagreements. It's moving from the general back to the specific to create precision and actionable steps. But here is the secret. You only do this within the newfound safety of that shared agreement you just built.
To drill down effectively, you can use a downward toolkit of trigger questions by asking things like, what is a specific part of this whole? Or what exactly prevents us from achieving this outcome? You start to lock in the actionable details of the mediation. You're taking that broad, feel-good shared agreement and breaking it down into manageable, solvable pieces so that real work can actually get done.
And that leads us to Section 5, mastering the negotiation process. Let's bring all this powerful psychological theory directly into the real world.
Here is the complete funnel of agreements process step by step. Step 1, you chunk up until you find that undeniable shared area of common agreement. Step 2, you chunk down to solve those specific disagreements from a place of mutual safety and respect. And step 3, you seek congruent agreement. A quick vital warning on this last step, though: manipulative sales techniques and hidden agendas will only ever create an incongruent agreement. And an incongruent agreement always contains the seeds of its own downfall. It will eventually fall apart. You want genuine, aligned understanding. Beyond just the words we use, we can integrate some brilliant physical tactics into our negotiation. Set a clear outcome frame, absolutely, and always treat the negotiation as a shared problem rather than a battle. But consider this fascinating insight. Physically sit at an angle rather than directly opposite your counterpart. This provides a powerful spatial metaphor. Instead of facing off like aggressive adversaries, sitting at an angle subconsciously signals you're working side by side on a shared problem together. Finally, mentally rehearse or future pace the agreement to ensure it will actually hold up under real-world pressure tomorrow.
Another essential tactic is backtracking. This is the delicate skill of restating key points using the other person's exact own words. If they tell you they are frustrated with the timeline, you say you understand they are frustrated with the timeline, not annoyed by the schedule. We are not paraphrasing here. When you paraphrase, you substitute their words with your own subjective vocabulary, which inevitably causes misunderstandings. Backtracking uses their exact phrasing, which paces the negotiation perfectly and provides tangible, undeniable evidence that you are actively listening to them.
And that brings us to our final thought today. The next time you hit a brick wall in a negotiation, whether it's with a difficult client, a stubborn spouse, or even just yourself trying to choose between the gym and dessert, will you keep banging your head against those specific, frustrating details? Or will you use your new spatial communication tools, chunk up to discover a hidden shared agreement, and then safely chunk down to solve the specifics? The choice, and the immense power to resolve the conflict, is now entirely yours. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and I'll see you next time.